Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching second part of What If Naruto Was Betrayed and Destroyed Konoha. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Uzumaki Naruto had finally completed the training that his sensei Uzumaki Genshin had laid out for him after 2 years of nearly non-stop training. The man knew Whirlpool better than anyone, despite the landscape changing in different places since his days as a living being, and discovered a hidden storehouse filled with ancient knowledge of the Uzumaki clan. From jutsu scrolls to sealing arts from beginner to advanced, and even one of Genshin's old shinobi armor that was a little dusty but still wearable. Of course, what surprised Naruto just as much was that it had been discovered by someone else, as the place had shown signs of being updated since Genshin's last visit to the storehouse, and further investigation revealed that it had been discovered by Uzumaki Mito herself. As it turned out, she had been a big fan of Genshin since she was a child, listening to the truth about the Uzumaki clan's history and trying to find the Sword of Jubi in the hopes of one day becoming a great leader of the clan. Unfortunately, the woman did not find the legendary weapon, but she did discover his secret storehouse and turned it into her own. Mito had left much behind before going to Konoha to be with her Senju for a husband, which Genshin had frowned upon when reading that particular section in the journal she had left behind, and yet he was glad that the man she did marry wasn't like his ancestor. Despite the misgivings each clan had for the other, the two actually liked each other and wanted to marry, despite the Uchiha's outright opposition. Naruto saw Mito's handiwork in seals, which were still more advanced than what was used today, and Genshin told him that the oldest Uzumaki-designed seals would always beat anything Jiraiya of the Sannin or any other seal master could make to this day. Naruto had to agree, because Mito's seals were designed to help future Jinchuriki with weaker, potentially unstable seals become worthy of holding their respected Biju. There was even one for female Jinchuriki who were pregnant and the seal was weakened by the stress of childbirth. Unfortunately, she never got to use this because she was stuck in Konoha the entire time, and the loss of Whirlpool itself threw a monkey wrench into possibly returning to use them. Naruto didn't mind, and neither did Genshin, because the woman wanted to keep secrets from potential enemies shinobi. Deep down, Genshin and Naruto knew. Uzumaki Mito herself didn't completely trust Konoha with this vast wealth of knowledge. And she was correct not to. Naruto began learning what Genshin and Mito had left in this storehouse with zeal after reading the journal. Genshin didn't hold back either. To be sure, the man was a cruel taskmaster, and it was no surprise that the Uzumaki spirit had dominated his two brothers when they challenged him for his power. Naruto put in so much effort in his training that not even Kyuubi's rejuvenating chakra could get him back on his feet. But, as they say, no pain, no gain. And Naruto has grown a lot since his time with Genshin. Chakra control, surviving in the Whirlpool wilderness that made the Forest of Death look like a walk in the park, and mastering jutsus until he could do the hand signs in his sleep. He practiced sword katas with the two dueling in his Mindscape as Genshin had instructed, with each duel demonstrating the boy's improvement. Naruto used the thick trees in Whirlpool as training grounds, hitting them until his bones broke and then waiting for them to heal with Kyuubi's help before going at it again the moment the bones healed. It was hell on earth training, but Naruto loved and thrived in it, just as he should have in Konoha if they had decided to properly educate him at the academy. When it was finished, Genshin realized he had nothing more to teach Naruto and smiled down at his still growing student for the last time. Naruto didn't want the spirit to leave, but he knew it was unavoidable and would happen regardless. Still, the boy refused to cry because he knew Genshin would not want it, and instead bowed before the man as a sign of respect to his sensei. "I have taught you everything I know, my student. You have gone beyond all expectations, Naruto. You have pushed yourself in these last two to achieve a level that others take a lifetime to achieve. Do you know why?" said Genshin, as Naruto looked at him, his proud one blue eye shining while wearing the spirit's old uniform complete with the eye patch. Because I'm doing this for the glory of the clan, to get the justice we deserve. I'm fighting for a cause greater than myself, Naruto replied, with Genshin nodding. Correct. Fight for a greater purpose than yourself, and you will achieve a level of power far beyond that of normal shinobi who fight only for themselves, shinobi like the Uchiha and Senju clans my two dumb brothers founded years ago, Genshin said, with Naruto nodding. I will treasure our time together, Genshin-sensei, and thank you for everything you've done for me, Naruto said, the spirit's hand resting on his shoulder. As will I, Uzumaki Naruto. The time has come to go forth into the elemental countries and remind the world of the strength that those of our bloodline possess. Exclaimed Genshin, with Naruto nodding before the world around them changed from white to the remains of whirlpool. I will not let you down, Genshin-sensei. I guarantee it. Naruto replied, knowing that the spirit would hear him even if the man had passed away. And so it begins, Kyuubi thought to himself, looking over at the two figures in the shadows who had been present at every step of Naruto's life but had yet to reveal themselves to the boy. Kyuubi, stop talking, said one of the two figures' male voices. What else? I'm not the one who sealed me up as his only son and then expected the fools to do what you wanted. That was entirely your fault, Yondaime Hokage. Kyuubi exclaimed, the Yondaime Hokage growling at him. What do you know, Fox? Because of you, my wife died and I was unable to raise him. Kyuubi growled in response to the Yondaime. You tried to imprison me once more. I never asked to be locked up. That was done to me without regard for how I felt. Using Biju as if we were pets, slaves, and personal weapons while not using us in that order. What right did you have to imprison me once I was free of the Sharingan's power? You only imprisoned me because you desired a weapon in the form of your son. Kyuubi shot back, the Yondaime Hokage stiffening at his words. I only wanted Naruto to have a way to fight Madara and his plans for the leaf in the future. Naruto was going to need all the power he could get his hands on, and you were going to be the edge he needed. The Yondaime shot back, while the Kyuubi simply laughed. Really? Why don't you meet him in here and tell him that yourself? Minato remained silent as Kyuubi questioned him. Because we're embarrassed, said the woman next to the Yondaime. Uzumaki Kushina, you should be. After all these years of wondering about his parents, it was through ME that he learned your names, and yet you never attempted to appear in front of him, while Kushina turned away from the fox, Kyuubi said. We'll talk to him when the time is right, Minato said, shaking his head at him. And when is that going to happen? Today? Tomorrow? In 1 week? Once a month? Maybe a year? What, 2 years? What, 3 years? What, 10 years? If he lives long enough to die of old age, will he be on his deathbed? When? Minato was looking away from the fox when Kyuubi asked. That is none of your concern. Kyuubi, the Yondaime, responded by shaking his head. Namikaze Minato, some father. It's no surprise that the people of Konoha dislike your son. You, too, have no feelings for him, Kyuubi said before leaving them alone to mull over his words. Is that correct, Minato? Kushina inquired, Minato not looking her in the eyes. I adore our son Kushina, but I despise the fact that he intends to destroy Konoha. I'm from Konoha, and I don't want it to be destroyed, Minato replied, while Kushina simply scowled at him. And the agony he endured? The betrayal he suffered at the hands of those we thought were trustworthy? Minato, Jiraiya, Tsunade, Kakashi, and the clan heads are all to blame. Are you saying they don't deserve to know our son's wrath, as well as the wrath of every Uzumaki your village has betrayed? Kushina inquired, Minato sighing. Kushina, what do you want me to say? That I'm upset? Outraged? Curse those cretins for betraying us both? Naturally, I am. I am all of these things and more. However, Konoha is my home. It is where I was born. It's where I learned everything I know about being a shinobi and where I call home. I do not agree with him destroying it. Kushina was furious at Minato's response. You deny our son the justice he deserves just for that? Because it's your home, you'd side with Konoha, those traitors, and our son's abusers. Minato, what about my house? Whirlpool was my first home, and it was destroyed by the same villager with whom you were born. Your allegiance should be to your son. Kushina almost yelled at her husband, who was looking away. Well, I don't see it that way, Minato replied, with Kushina looking enraged at him. So you'd kill your own son to protect the village. You did it for noble reasons the first time, hoping that the fruits of your sacrifice would be wonderful, with Naruto being loved. It's now time for a stupid one. You're only concerned with Konoha's survival and having a weapon against Madara. You don't even consider Naruto to be your son. Yes, I do. And I'm going to tell him about it. Kushina replied before walking away from the man. She'll come around, and when it's my turn to speak to Naruto, he'll see things my way, Minato thought to himself, a chill running up his spine. 2 months later in Konoha, Tsunade was irritated because Uchiha Sasuke had decided, in his infinite and extremely arrogant wisdom, to leave Konoha for Orochimaru once more. Why? To gain the necessary power to kill his older brother, for the sake of the Uchiha clan's glory, I must murder my older brother. Or, Itachi must perish. That is all that is important to me. And all that other nonsense. To make matters worse, Konoha was in dire straits due to the loss of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, as well as the loss of allies the brat had gained for the village. Many in the Leaf blamed Naruto for this after word spread through Konoha originally about the punishment he would receive for harming the Uchiha and how he was presumed dead after running away to escape it. A party was thrown after that throughout the village, and all was well at first with Naru. Those who missed Naruto were Hyuga Hinata, Mitarashi Anko, Azuki Yugo, Tsunade's assistant Shizune, Tuchi, and his daughter Ayame. The Konohamaru Corps had been supportive of the Uzumaki, but had abandoned their one-time idol after Asuma told his nephew that it was because of Naruto that his grandmother died the night of Kyuubi's attack, and had. They now detested Naruto without a doubt. Shizune, send in a retrieval team. Every Junin level. Tsunade obeyed, and Shizune followed, and she had them all in her office within minutes. You summoned us, Hokage-sama? Junin, who had a scar on his right cheek, inquired. Yes. Uchiha Sasuke has gone rogue once more. Return him to Konoha. Force is permitted, but nothing should happen to him that would stunt his growth, ability to use the Sharingan, or have offspring who might be able to use the Sharingan. Is this clear? Tsunade stated as the group nodded. Hokage-sama, you are correct. They all responded at the same time before she motioned them to leave, and they did so immediately. That Uchiha is more trouble than he's worth, Jiraiya said from the window, rubbing Tsunade's temples. I'm sure he's Baka. But we require the Sharingan, and we require him to be present in order to produce more of them. Why hasn't Sakura gotten pregnant yet? Tsunade knew the wedding took place a few months ago, with Sakura flaunting her new status as Sasuke's wife in front of everyone. How am I to know? I don't spy on them, Tsunade gave Jiraiya a piecing look as he replied. Please. You peeped in on Kushina and Minato's wedding night before Kushina beat you up so badly that you had to be in a body cast for 6 months. Jiraiya looked away as Tsunade countered. Okay, you got me. According to my observations, the two have only had sex once, and that was on their honeymoon. Tsunade's eyes widened as he responded to Jiraiya. What? You're telling me they only had sex once during their expensive honeymoon, which we paid for with the intention of them romping for 2 weeks before returning? What the hell did he do for 2 weeks on a cruise ship? Tsunade inquired, as nearly everyone in the village had put money into that trip because they didn't want Sasuke to spend a single coin from his clan accounts, and nearly all the young women in the village were practically jealous, thinking the Uchiha would rock Sakura's world. According to what I learned from the ship's crew, eating, sleeping, and pretty much nothing else. In fact, after he did his deed with Sakura, I learned from the ship's captain that Sasuke had almost demanded to sleep in a different room away from her, and had done so for the majority of the time on the ship. Tsunade looked irritated as he replied to Jiraiya. That spoiled brat. We spent a fortune and then some on his honeymoon, and the investment was a shambles. Didn't Sakura try to screw him over in his sleep? Tsunade inquired, Jiraiya shrugging. I believe she attempted but failed to carry it out because Sasuke appears to be a light sleeper. As a result, he demanded another room. Tsunade responded to Jiraiya by yelling angrily and slamming her fist on the desk. That's all. When he's returned, I want Sakura to screw him around the clock while he's being pumped full of fertility pills. I want her to be pregnant and giving birth to an army of Uchiha by the end of the month. Commanded Tsunade, as Jiraiya nodded and leapt out the window, knowing he'd be the one to break the news to Sakura. Along with Sasuke. The Uchiha had had enough of Konoha. Why? Because all they wanted from him was the Sharingan and his future offspring. The only reason he married Sakura was due to her finally acquiring strength worthy of his attention that she would give birth to strong Uchiha children. So they got married, went on the honeymoon, and immediately things went bad for him because Sakura just wanted to stay in bed all day trying to get pregnant. He was sleeping on top of a shocked and unsatisfied Sakura because she was not expecting that all he had done was minimal for what was required on his part. She tried to counter it with her fangirl-like mind telling her he was exhausted and it was the first night on the cruise, so it was only fair to let her husband unwind in his own way. Of course, what Sakura failed to realize was that he was exhausted and it was the first night on the cruise, so it was only fair to let her husband. Of course, Sakura would never tell anyone the truth about their time on the cruise, as she was too loyal a puppy to tarnish the Uchiha clan's reputation, and would gush to just about everyone in the village about her husband being a wild stallion in bed, how they went on for hours filled with passion, romance, and how they rocked the room with such intensity they almost single-handedly tipped the cruise ship over. It was the ideal strategy. That pathetic loser is probably in some ditch somewhere dying or is dead with his corpse feeding some other pathetic animal in desperate need of food to survive, Sasuke thought as he found himself back in the Valley of the End and the sensation of that battle returning to him. Hello, Sasuke, said a voice from behind the Uchiha, who turned around to find a fist in his face and everything went dark. When the Uchiha awoke from his coma, he found his body racked with pain, and for good reason, as his body was broken in various places. His right arm was bent at an odd angle, and his fingers were bent all over the place, his left arm was smashed up in a similar fashion from the shoulder on down, and his legs were broken from the kneecap on down. It was also difficult to breathe. Looking up from his downed position, Sasuke noticed a figure sitting on a rock in front of him, staring with one eye while the other was hidden behind an eye patch. His head was covered by a crimson helmet resembling a fox, his face was covered by black cloth, and he wore mostly black with orange flames around along the back. The clothing had some samurai armor plating on it here and there, but nothing that. Do you recognize me? What village am I from? Do you dare to attack the elite clan? Sasuke inquired before crying out in agony. Uchiha, I would save what little strength you still have in your body. Both of your arms are broken in multiple places, and your knees from the caps on down are almost beyond repair. As things currently stand, only someone of Senju Tsunade's caliber can repair your body, and even then. You will never be the same. Sasuke just stared at him as the figure replied. You cretin. Sasuke cried out, struggling to move and take breaths. Did I also mention that I broke several of your ribs on both sides? I did the same thing while you were gone. As he saw Sasuke staring at him, the figure replied, ignoring the fool's eyes. Please respond. Do you realize what you've done? Who did you incite? Who am I? Which clan am I a member of? Asked Sasuke, sighing as he rose from his seat and began to walk over to the injured Uchiha. To answer your first question, I know who you are and where you come from, Uchiha Sasuke. I'm also aware of what you are. You were raised in a village that catered to your every whim, no matter how big or small. They gave you everything you could possibly want. Money, women, fame, and shinobi willing to train you to become something great are all available to you. What action do you take in response? You run away to the snake Sannin for power, replied the figure with Sasuke spitting blood out of his mouth at the man's feet in front of him. Stop talking. What do you think you know? Power is the only thing I require, and I'll get it any way I can. I'm going to kill Itachi. Sasuke exclaimed before letting out a growl of pain from the sensation in his chest that he was finding it harder to breathe with each passing moment. And what kind of power will Orochimaru bestow upon you? Is it anything to do with your curse seal? We both know he'll never let you go after Itachi, said the figure who was walking in a circle around Uchiha. He certainly will. I have something the Sannin desires, and the only way Orochimaru can have my body is if he grants me the ability to kill Itachi. Sasuke exclaimed, fighting back the pain he felt as the figure laughed at him. You stupid, conceited jerk. If you go to him, he has complete control over your future. Orochimaru will ensure that you never become stronger than him, so that when the time comes to take your body, he will be able to do so without hesitation. Sasuke scowled at him as he explained the figure. I'd leave before that happened, Sasuke replied, the figure mocking him. You certainly would. Do you really expect Orochimaru to not take precautions to keep you by his side at all times? Asked the figure, who was still staring at Sasuke. I'd intervene. I am a member of an elite clan. I have greatness blood coursing through my veins. With the figure having had enough of his voice, the whole, I will defy you by glaring thing, Sasuke punched the Uchiha right in the face, breaking his jaw and almost knocking the boy out. Greatness blood. Ha. Traitor's blood is more like it. You are frail. Sasuke has always been and will always be. You were weak 2 years ago when I beat you, and you are weak now. I punched you once and you were out like a light. You claim to be so powerful because of your bloodline, but we both know that's nonsense, and that you got to where you are today because others carried you. You've never been able to pull your own weight with your own strength. It was always someone else going out of their way to make the last Uchiha happy and take the burden off your back. Go back to the Hokage. Go back to that bitch and tell her Uzumaki Naruto is alive. Tell her it's because of me you're not in the clutches of Orochimaru, Naruto said before walking away from the Uchiha, canceling the barrier he set up around them, and then flared his chakra knowing that they've always done it. It has to be Naruto. Naruto is a failure. The Academy's dead last. He would never do something like this to me. With darkness taking him, Sasuke thought before the team arrived to pick him up. Sometime later, Hokage Tower. You morons. I told you not to hurt the Uchiha in such a way that his performance would be affected. Yelled Tsunade, as the Junin cowered in the corner at the angry appearance of their Hokage. Hokage S-sama, you have to understand www we had no choice. Explained the group's elected leader, who had been pushed forward and left to fend for himself in front of the Hokage while the others were pressed back against the wall. You had no choice? It's because of your dumbness that Uchiha Sasuke will not be able to reach his peak performance as one of my shinobi. Yelled Tsunade, with the Junin looking back at his team that had put him in this situation. WEH had to stop him from reaching Orochimaru. He was dead set on getting there no matter what we did to try and stop him, the Junin explained quickly while keeping his stuttering to a bare minimum, and saw Tsunade's expression change. Tsunade commanded, Anbu. Arrest them all until I figure out a proper punishment for them. The Anbu appeared and took the group of Junin out of the room. How badly was the Uchiha messed up? Jiraiya asked, with Tsunade giving him a glare that made the Sannin fear for his life. Badly. I'm not sure why the team disobeyed me when I gave the order, but they will be punished. Exclaimed Tsunade, with Jiraiya seeing the woman enraged. Not surprisingly, given how the village has been repeatedly attacked by their enemies on all fronts, Suna refuses to help, and almost every other ally Naruto obtained the leaf said, "Screw you," while giving Konoha the finger. Since then, it's been a battle for survival against their enemies in the Jinchuriki that each village possessed. Throughout this time, the councils and clan heads were arguing about how a search team should be sent to find Naruto and turn him into the perfect weapon to combat the other shinobi villages. Jiraiya agreed with them because it was the only way to keep their foaming at the mouth enemies from beating them. The only reason the other villages, such as Kumo and Iwa, weren't doing it right now was because the Akatsuki organization was attempting to take the Jinchuriki from the villages in a series of barely successful attempts. I see. Well, I'm the bearer of more bad news when I say Naruto hasn't been found yet no matter where I've looked. I went all over the place looking for him. Waved to spring to Suna and every other place he's made himself famous. Wherever he is. Not it's one of those locations, Jiraiya explained after working overtime to find the brat and getting nothing in return. Damn it. Where could he have gone in the last 2 years that we can't find a single hair of him? Tsunade wondered, as she marked on the map every location Naruto had visited outside of the village, as well as marks next to them indicating he had never been there. I don't know, Tsunade. I honestly thought he'd be in Wave Country because the brat was heading north and the boat was possibly being steered that general direction, but the natives wouldn't tell me anything, practically formed a mob, and I had to run for my life just to escape them, Jiraiya replied, Tsunade sighing from the amount of stress this was putting on her. Find him, Jiraiya. I don't care how you do it. Just find him, bring Naruto back, and make sure he's in a condition where we can shape him into a proper weapon against our growing number of enemies, Tsunade ordered as the Sannin nodded. There's also the issue of passing down the Kyuubi to another host, and for that we need a future vessel with Uzumaki blood, Jiraiya said, with Tsunade frowning for the first time because she knew what he was talking about. Human reproduction and the birth of children. Since Hyuga Hinata was so interested in the brat from the start, I'll talk to Hiashi about letting his daughter be the one to have that honor, and play it off like the village will be indebted to the Hyuga clan if he agrees. She's going to be branded with the cage bird seal anyway in a few more years, so it's not like her father will lose any real control over the woman during the pregnancy, Tsunade. Tsunade didn't know why the Hyuga girl did it, but in all honesty, the 5th Hokage didn't care because love was overrated in her opinion, and if the slug princess couldn't be with the one she loved with all her heart, then neither could Hinata. And the child's development? Hiashi and the Hyuga clan will demand a cage bird seal on the child as well, Jiraiya predicted, knowing that this would be one of the first demands made by the Hyuga clan. And have them control the child as their personal weapon? No. The child will be a weapon to defend Konoha as a whole. We'll have a modified cage bird seal made to ensure the protection of their bloodline, but it won't be made to hurt the new Jinchuriki simply by using the needed hand sign only they can use, Tsunade explained, with Jiraiya sighing knowing that would require a great deal of research in the sealing arts. I'll set things up, and you deal with Hiyashi when the time comes, Jiraiya said before heading back out the window. Where are you, brat? Stop hiding and show yourself. Tsunade thought to herself as she examined the map, where any and all possible locations the brat could have gone were all marked as having no chance of him being there. A few days later with Naruto. Naruto sat in meditation, his sword resting on his lap, his attention drawn to the sounds of nature around him. The beating he gave Uchiha Sasuke felt good and long overdue in Uzumaki's opinion. He could have killed the jerk, but what would be the point? Naruto knew the Uchiha's pride would never allow him to admit that the last man standing at the academy had gotten the jump on him and knocked the moron out with a single punch. Besides, he wanted Sasuke to die when the time was right, which Naruto knew was still a long way off. Even so, the Uzumaki weren't satisfied with his work and wanted to see what Konoha was up to after hearing what had happened to their beloved Uchiha. They'd be out for blood in the same way they were after hearing how the last Uchiha lost to the dead last. Perhaps now some of those shinobi who are punished will understand how I felt before they meet their end, Naruto reasoned before summoning a shadow clone in front of him. You called boss? Shadow clone Naruto inquired. Henge into a random person and spy on the village's current rumblings. I want to know every single detail about the punishment the retrieval team is receiving as a result of the Uchiha being returned messed up, Naruto ordered, the shadow clone grinning at him before taking off. Naruto's world went dark moments later, and he found himself deep within his mindscape. However, standing before him was not the Kyuubi, whom he assumed had done it because the fox wanted to talk, but a woman with red hair and a sorrowful smile on her face. She had tears streaming down her cheeks, but her eyes were filled with joy at seeing him after so long apart. Hello, son, Kushina said, as Naruto stared at her in surprise. Mother? Naruto inquired, before discovering Kyuubi in his cage, watching the entire event. Don't look at me, Kit. I had nothing to do with this. She brought you here, the Kyuubi replied, seeing the boy's puzzled expression. You truly are my mother. I can feel it. But how is this possible? Inquired Naruto, as Kushina smiled slightly at him. When Kyuubi was sealed inside of you, I sealed a portion of my chakra into the seal as a safety measure to ensure the fox couldn't get free and protect you from his chakra. I am a last line of defense against him, along with your father, Kushina explained before moving surprisingly quickly and crying into his neck. If that's true, then why are you here? Kyuubi hasn't done anything to warrant your intervention, Naruto said as he looked at the fox, who snorted at the two and turned away. As I previously stated, I had no involvement in this. She came here on her own accord, Kyuubi said as Kushina continued to cry into her son's body. I came here to apologize for what happened. It was never meant to be this way for you, sobbed Kushina, as Naruto tentatively placed a hand on his mother's back. I know. Kyuubi helped explain to me what happened that night, Naruto replied, and Kushina looked at Kyuubi, who looked away, telling the woman that the fox didn't tell the boy everything. Despite the fact that she could see why. You should really tell him, Kyuubi, Kushina said, breaking the two Uzumaki's embrace to look at the Biju. Tell me what? Naruto asked as the fox grumbled some more. I might have been responsible for your mother's death, Kyuubi replied, his gaze narrowed at him. What? Naruto asked, his voice becoming deathly. Naruto, let me explain. After the man claiming to be Uchiha Madara lost control over Kyuubi, The fox saw we were planning to seal him away into you because I was too weak to take him back in my body again, and he moved to kill you to keep his newfound freedom he hadn't had in over a century. To protect you from harm, I moved in front of Kyuubi and took his attack to save your life. Why didn't you tell me that after all this time? Asked Naruto, his face flushed with annoyance. And just how was I going to explain it to you? Oh, by the way, Kit, it was by my very claws your mother died saving you from me, and played a key part in my sealing done by your father. Oh yeah. That sounds so swell when I say it like that. You were in enough pain learning about Konoha's horrible betrayal of your mother's clan while being told who your parents were just days prior to that information. Thank you for that. You're right. Such a truth would have destroyed me. Would have destroyed whatever friendship or partnership we've had up until now. You were going to tell me eventually, right? Naruto replied, with the fox nodding. Eventually. Your mother kind of forced my hand, Kyuubi replied, giving the woman a knowing look and Kushina a sheepish look. Oops. Kushina laughed nervously, but soon became serious, turning to her right to see the Yondaime Hokage appear. You have a lot of nerve showing your face here. Unlike Kushina, I know you are not here to make amends to your son. Exclaimed Kyuubi furiously behind his cage, slashing at the bars and aiming his claws in between them, attempting to pierce the man. Unfortunately, he was just out of range. Shut up, you lowly animal, Minato said as he approached his son, Kushina and Naruto looking at him warily and Kyuubi growling at him. If what he's saying is true, why are you here? Asked Naruto, as Minato and Kushina looked at him. To talk, Minato replied as if it were the most natural thing in the world. About what? Naruto inquired, still cautious. About your plans for Konoha and to persuade you to abandon this quest for senseless vengeance, Minato replied, with Naruto and Kushina scowling at him. I knew it. You care more about that village than your own son. Exclaimed Kushina, glaring at Minato. The village is full of people I've known my entire life growing up. They deserve a second chance. They deserve the right to redeem themselves, Minato explained, his son scoffing and Kyuubi laughing cruelly, telling the Yondaime Hokage the fox thought his response was a cruel joke. Redeem themselves? Are you serious? Those fools practically tortured your son from day one. They spat on your dying wish, and you want to give them a chance. Where was your son's chance? His shinobi training at the academy was sabotaged, his sensei who was your student taught him next to nothing, and his godfather who was your very own sensei betrayed the kit in a heartbeat. The Sannin removed your son's name from the... We're not here to discuss what-ifs, Kyuubi. We're here to discuss the present and the future, Minato shot back, Naruto growling. You want to talk about the present? Fine. Here's what's going on in the present. Your village you love so much has become a shithole, and it's one they've created. The current Hokage betrayed my mother, the village betrayed my clan, and the country they lived in because they wanted to control the future Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, as well as any offspring I may have had before they killed me in the event I died. You were born in Konoha, you have the blood of a Konoha shinobi in your veins, how can you betray me like that? Minato asked, as Naruto glared angrily at his stupid father. How can you betray you? How can you betray me? You're siding with Konoha over your own son simply because you believe they deserve redemption when they'd rather spit it back in your face. I tried to prove them wrong, but the whole time I tried, they didn't listen, and still don't care about being proven wrong. All they cared about was hurting me and they knew they could get away with it no matter what. I don't believe that, Minato said, with Kushina mocking him. Then you're clearly in denial, Kushina shot back. Regardless of what you two think, I'm not going to let that happen, and I'm going to stop you from getting your senseless revenge, Minato replied, with Naruto poised for a fight. Try living in my shoes for a few years, being lied to, beaten, and then betrayed by the very people you once trusted to see beyond the veil of blind arrogance, and then come back to me in a few years before saying to my face that getting revenge on such people is senseless, Naruto said, drawing the sword of Jubi and staring at his father with contempt. Konoha is my home. I will not let it be destroyed. Even if it means killing my own son, Minato said, holding one of his special kunai in his left hand, which Naruto noticed. I'm not your son Yondaime. Not anymore. Uzumaki Genshin was more of a father to me than you ever were. All you are now is a sperm donor. A means to an end in the cycle of human reproduction and a symbol in the equation that is the creation of life. Now I'm going to write the equation that is the taking of life by taking yours with my sword, Naruto said, as Minato materialized his own sword into his right hand. So be it, Minato replied before the two clashed violently. Are you going to stop this? Kyuubi asked, seeing Kushina on the sidelines. Only if necessary, Kushina replied, watching her husband and son fight, neither of them using any of their jutsus because the risk of them hitting the seal was too great. You don't see what you're doing is wrong. I gave my life for you and Konoha. Minato exclaimed, his son deadlocked in front of him. And look how they repaid your sacrifice. Hating me. Abusing me. Trying to make me too weak to do anything or think independently from their line of thought. What kind of life is that? A life without free will? I was entitled to a life. Naruto retorted to his so-called father. You had a purpose in life. The life of a Jinchuriki is to sacrifice free will in exchange for the power bestowed upon you, Minato explained as Naruto pushed him back. And my mother? Asked Naruto, calculatingly looking at his father. Kushina's life was different because at the time we couldn't afford people knowing she was a Jinchuriki because war was all around us. It was one of the reasons Konoha prevailed in the war against Kumo and Iwa because they never knew of her status as a Jinchuriki and couldn't use her against us as a weapon because her seal was much stronger than one I put on you, and couldn't draw on the fox's chakra unless. So it was just a matter of timing that prevented you from using my mother as the weapon Konoha wanted out of me? To be weak-minded, deafeningly. That is how Jinchuriki are meant to be, Naruto. I did love your mother. I still do. When the war ended, the councils asked me to turn the Kyuubi Jinchuriki we had locked away in secret like I made them believe she was into a weapon, and I told them no. That to do so now at this stage of the war would make us look like the villains, and I wasn't about to do that, Minato replied as he dodged a sword strike. If you loved her as much as you claim, we wouldn't be having this fight or discussion about the Leaf's future destruction. If you loved her as much as you claim, you would be truly understanding of my reasons for wanting to burn Konoha down to the ground, and the people living there with it. You would be disgusted by your sensei, your student, and the people in the village for spitting on your dying wish. Exclaimed Naruto, as he lashed out with his claw. Only for Minato to successfully block it. I guess that makes me a sentimental fool, Minato said, struggling to push Naruto back. No, just a fool. You chose the wrong horse when it came to choosing sides, Naruto replied, knocking the sword from the man's hand, the kunai from the other, and the sword of the Jubi through the Yondaime's chest. Naruto. I know you feel that Konoha deserves to burn, but not everyone has to die. Exclaimed his son, blood running down his face. I know that. There are some worthy of my mercy. They will be spared my wrath, but everyone else, they won't be so lucky. Said Naruto, twisting the blade and carving flesh from his father's body. Naruto. No matter what you think of me or my reasons for defending Konoha, I am sorry for what happened to you. Minato exclaimed, grabbing his son's wrist to stop him. I believe you're sorry, but we both know you saying you're sorry just doesn't cut it anymore, said Naruto as he sliced through Minato and removed his head. While Naruto sheathed his sword and looked over at his mother, who was watching with an impassive expression, the Yondaime's body dissolved into a sort of smoke. Naruto could tell she wasn't happy with how this conversation between father and son ended with them fighting to the death. He could tell she was relieved that her only son had survived the ordeal alive and well. You did what you had to do, Naruto, Kushina replied, with Naruto nodding, fighting for a greater purpose than anything else, and all those who stood in his way would perish. I know, and I'm not going to stop with Konoha. I'm sick and tired of the elemental countries being the way they are. Divided, scattered, feuding with each other for scraps of power they don't properly distribute to those who need it in their own territories. The poor suffer while the rich get more of everything they already have. Naruto was an Uzumaki on a mission, and only another Uzumaki on a similar but opposing mission could stop him. No matter what happens, I'll always love you as my son and I'll always be proud of you. Don't believe anything else, Kushina said before hugging him again and feeling her spirit leave him. I won't. Goodbye. Mother, Naruto replied, a tear falling from one of his eyes. Goodbye, son. I've left a gift for you to use if you need it. Kyuubi will help because he's seen me use it against him, Kushina said before her spirit faded, which shocked Kyuubi. What gift? Naruto inquired, the fox sighing. It's a good thing your physical body is sitting down because I've got a story to tell you about your mother's bloodline and how it was connected to the Biju. If she gave you what I think your mother gave you, the odds of things going in our favor just went up, Kyuubi replied, as he began explaining exactly what the gift Kushina left her son, and how it would help him in the future. Konoha a little later. While Naruto fought his father within his mindscape, his shadow clone was busy impersonating a traveler with a henge and avoiding Konoha shinobi's attention. The shadow clone happened to walk into Konoha at the perfect time, as a large event was taking place in the village square, and nearly everyone was there. Shinobi and civilians alike were congregating, with the Hokage at the center of it all, surrounded by her Anbu bodyguards and Jiraiya of the Sannin himself. What do you know? This is what a public execution looks like from the perspective of a spectator, and when it's not the boss's head on the chopping block, thought the Naruto shadow clone, knowing that the boss would think the same thing when he dispelled with all his memories going to the real deal Uzumaki. People of Konoha, you are all here to witness the execution of several Junin shinobi who disobeyed my command to bring back Uchiha Sasuke, and with only minor injuries that could be healed quickly, but these Junin here defied my orders, badly injuring the last loyal member of the Uchiha clan, and hindering his ability to be a shinobi when he is a full-grown adult at the prime of his life. Exclaimed Tsunade. Or who they thought was to blame. Oh, she's going to execute them? Junin, I thought she sent more than this small group of 3. No, 4? Others must have been punished in some other way. Well, whatever. No skin off my back, thought Shadow Clone Naruto as he saw Tsunade play to the crowd, demanding justice for the injured Uchiha who had been harmed by these Junin. As your Hokage, I have decided that the only true punishment available that is deemed appropriate in my eyes is a public execution to remind my shinobi under my command that failing to comply with my orders will not be tolerated, and you will face Konoha's justice. Declared Tsunade, with the crowd eating it up and the Junin about to die looking for mercy. It's Konoha's justice, my clone $. A cheating boyfriend getting an STD from a hooker is a higher level of justice than this, thought Naruto's shadow clone before Tsunade gave the order and the 4 Junin were hanged in front of everyone, to loud cheers from the audience. Quite the sight, huh? Said Hitaki Kakashi proudly, though he was reading his book at the time, making it difficult to tell if he was truly interested in the death of 4 Junin over the death of his porn book. Huh? Oh, you mean this public execution? Yeah, I guess. I mean, you've seen one, you've seen them all, shadow clone Naruto responded casually, with Kakashi nodding and still reading his Icha Icha Paradise. True, but there is one I'd prefer to see above all others, Kakashi replied, as shadow clone Naruto continued to play the surprised traveler. Really? Who? Anyone I know? Shadow clone Naruto joked, with Kakashi shrugging. Uzumaki Naruto, Kakashi replied, the shadow clone looking surprised. Really? Isn't he the Kyuubi's container? One of the 9 Biju? Asked the shadow clone, shrugging his shoulders. Yeah. That's the one. He injured the Uchiha first with the demonic chakra in his body, though I suppose all the secret training I gave Sasuke since my genin team was formed just wasn't enough to combat the fox's power, Kakashi said casually, Naruto's shadow clone trying to keep his emotions under control. Kinkashi snorted in disgust as the shadow clone asked, kind of makes you wonder what would have happened if the Gaki was properly trained to his full potential. That brat? Trained to be unstoppable? Hardly. It was never going to happen, Kakashi explained calmly as he continued to read his book. Really? How can you be so sure? Asked the shadow clone, his one eye on Kakashi. What do you mean? Kakashi asked, staring at Naruto's disguised shadow clone. Well, the kid has a mind of his own, right? So he's going to train to get stronger, whether with help or on his own, explained the shadow clone, pausing for a second before returning to his book. That is correct. As for your question, the brat was never going to be trained to his full potential because an order by the Sandaime Hokage was put in place to keep him from reaching it, and Tsunade was doing the same thing. A powerful beast like that needs to be put on a tight leash and training has to be heavily monitored so we know when to tug the leash hard, replied Kakashi, with Naruto shadow clone humming in false agreement. Tug too hard, and the beast will snap his jaws on the hand that pulls, the shadow clone countered as Kakashi shrugged. We'll see, Kakashi said casually, but I'm looking forward to seeing the Kyuubi brat brought down and humbled before the Hokage. Yes, I'm sure it'll be a very interesting experience for everyone. That day will be long remembered without a doubt, said the shadow clone before waving bye to the Junin and leaving to dispel himself in an alley somewhere. Being around Kakashi made the shadow clone want to commit suicide. Along with Naruto. Naruto absorbed his shadow clone's memories, smirking as he did so, knowing Konoha had lost some troops who were innocent in the whole thing, but were thrown to the wolves hungry for blood, and boy did they get it. Ha! That old woman murdered 4 innocent Junin-level shinobi who had done nothing to deserve it. Walking along the road, Naruto noticed on his map, which he easily purchased in the previous town, that he was at the border of Fire Country, leading into one of the smaller countries, and had a small shinobi village called Taki. Frowning, Naruto remembered a history lesson from the academy about how a shinobi of Taki tried to assassinate the Shoden Hokage, and how the Senju gave them the 7-tailed Biju that was sealed into a Jinchuriki to keep the peace. And Naruto was willing to bet his last eye that Taki's Jinchuriki was treated like garbage. Easy kid. Don't start making more enemies than you can put down, Kyuubi warned, as Naruto paused for a moment. Who said I'd make more enemies? I'm going to Taki to make a new friend and ally, thought Naruto, despite Kyuubi's reservations. This will not end well, Kyuubi thought to himself. Ignoring Kyuubi at this point, Naruto went to Taki in an attempt to make more friends to help even the playing field against his formidable foes. Konoha, Orochimaru, Kabuto, the Akatsuki, and anyone else interested in his Uzumaki hide. To counter this, Naruto would need allies among those who were also targets of his enemies, and turn them into allies. Or, as the old adage goes, my enemy's enemy is my friend. Taki Forest sometime later. Fu sighed from her perch in the tree, looking out at the village she swore to protect and the people who lived there. Normally, a shinobi who was loyal to their village would not be bothered by this, but Fu was different because the fact that she was Jinchuriki of the seven-tailed Biju caused people to dislike her. They despised her and didn't care if she died defending the village and them from an outside force hell-bent on annihilating them. They'd rather show mercy to the enemy invaders than to her, and they'd almost certainly let those responsible for her death go free if they were among those apprehended after the battle. Where had the justice gone? Hey Chimay, do you think we should leave Taki? Fu asked, her beetle buzzing for a second. Hard to say, my little larva. While it would be nice to relocate somewhere where you could be appreciated, the chances of that are slim, and if you were caught, I am sure consequences will ensue, Chimay replied, with Fu nodding because that was always a possibility. You're right, but if the opportunity to be free arose, should I take it? Fu wondered as she heard more buzzing from her Biju and knew the demonic entity was weighing everything. Considering it's a one-time thing that won't come up again in your lifetime? Replied Chimay, with Fu nodding, but the girl sighed again as she gazed out the window at Taki in the distance. Well, I'm not going to hold my breath on it. The chances of us escaping Taki are slim to none, Fu replied as he leapt from the tree to the ground below. Don't be so sure, said a voice from the shadows, and Fu immediately became wary. Who is there? Show yourself. Fu commanded, a chuckle echoing around her before the figure emerged from the shadows. Will this suffice? Asked the figure, who was wary of Fu. Identify yourself. Fu demanded as she noticed her Biju becoming agitated. I am Uzumaki Naruto, the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi, and you are Fu, the Jinchuriki of Nanabi, correct? Naruto replied, with Fu taking a step back, but bringing out a kunai to both her hands and carefully gauging him. And what if I am? Fu shot back, Naruto narrowing his one blue eye at her. You may be a Jinchuriki, but all Jinchuriki belong to a hidden village, and last I checked, Kyuubi belonged to Konoha, Fu said. Kyuubi does not belong to Konoha, nor does his vessel. We are free from their chains and shackles because we broke free of them, Naruto replied, his cold blue eyes piercing Fu's orange ones. So you claim, Fu retorted, as Naruto pulled out a bingo book and tossed it to her feet. Look at page number 167 marked halfway among those listed under S-rank missing nin, Naruto countered, with Fu first kicking the book to see if it was an actual bingo book, then picking it up to the suggested page he referred to while keeping an eye on him. Naruto Uzumaki's name. Konoha is my hometown. Shinobi level. S-ranked nin is missing from Jinchuriki. Information. Uzumaki Naruto is a Biju Jinchuriki. Given that the Yondaime Hokage fought the attack over a decade ago, it's most likely Kyuubi. There is no body to confirm his death, but evidence of surviving an attack by Konoha shinobi following his defection from Konoha is shown. Considered hostile, unstable, and extremely dangerous, with no knowledge of how to use his Biju's powers. Approach with extreme caution and in large groups of strong people. Reward. 300 million Rai if captured and returned alive to Konoha. That's your bounty? It's huge. Fu exclaimed, and Naruto laughed. It'll get bigger in a few years, Naruto replied, knowing he'd get Konoha's attention soon and really hit them hard. And you want me to join you despite the bounty on your head? Fu asked. knowing that if she did, Taki would raise a fuss and get herself a sizable bounty as well. Why not? 2 strong Jinchuriki working together is better than either of us being alone, and given that the Akatsuki organization is after us. We need a united front, Naruto replied, raising an eyebrow at Fu. The who? Fu inquired, his brow furrowed. You mean no one from your village has told you yet? Said Naruto, as Fu frowned even more. Told me what? Fu demanded, her voice demanding. The Akatsuki organization is hunting Jinchuriki for their Biju, intending to extract them from their hosts for some grand master plan. The group consists of 9 S-class missing nin, who group themselves into pairs, and each pair has the ability to neutralize a Jinchuriki's ability to use the chakra of their Biju, giving them an advantage because almost all Jinchuriki are isolated, abused, and controlled in terms of how strong they can get. And you propose we band together to fight them? Fu finally asked, with Naruto simply nodding. They expect us to be alone, with no support, friends, or help from anyone because of what we are in life. With Jinchuriki uniting together, we make them sweat, we make them shiver in fear, and we make them pay for trying to push us around like so many have done to us in the past. It's time we push back, exclaimed Naruto, with Fu nodding in agreement. I'll do it. I'll probably never get another chance like this again, so I'll help you in any way I can, Fu replied, knowing that it was either this or being out here until the Akatsuki came to get Chimei. Fu intended to fight. That's the spirit. Come on, we have to get going before one of Taki's patrols comes along to check on you, Naruto said, with Fu close behind him. How do you know that? Fu inquired, while Naruto simply smirked. Because I know how shinobi villages operate with their Jinchuriki. They always make sure to keep an eye on them while making sure their Jinchuriki don't know it. They give us a false sense of freedom, which they exploit with their secret surveillance, and when they wish to orchestrate sudden attacks before rescuing us so we feel grateful to them, Naruto replied, with Fu nodding. And if they try to follow us? Fu inquired. We kill them, Naruto stated emphatically, assuring Fu that he would do the same. 2 days later, Hokage Tower. Hey! I got a hit on Naruto! Exclaimed Jiraiya from Tsunade's office window. What? Where? When? How? Exclaimed Tsunade, almost leaping out of her chair. One of my spies overheard a guy calling himself Naruto walking through a town in Waterfall Country after being near Taki Shinobi Village, and he was traveling with a green-haired girl named Fu, who upon checking with my other sources determined she was in fact the 7-tailed Jinchuriki from Taki, and they were both stained in dried blood, Jiraiya said, widening Tsunade's eyes in surprise. Dried blood? You mean they? Tsunade asked, and Jiraiya nodded. Killed a few people? Yeah, and not just any few people. They killed Taki Shinobi patrolling where the girl was supposed to be when guarding Taki's wall and pursued her to find out why she wasn't at her post. The group following them was 4 Junin and 3 Chunin to be exact, Jiraiya explained as Tsunade narrowed her eyes. So the brat isn't above killing people, Tsunade replied, while Jiraiya nodded, knowing this was not good. Killing is an understatement, Tsunade. The group that pursued them were slaughtered and basically cut to pieces. Based on the amount of blood on each of them, I guess Naruto killed more than Fu did, but only because she's still not used to killing someone unless it's absolutely necessary, and probably made those she killed die painlessly, Jiraiya explained, Tsunade gritting her teeth. What's Taki doing about it? Tsunade wondered, knowing that the minor shinobi village would be furious. They put the girl Fu in the bingo book and posted their own bounty for both of them, though their bounty on Naruto is if he's dead, fortunately for us. The bounty we have for him is much higher, Jiraiya explained as he noticed Tsunade enraged and ready to hurt someone. Find out where he is, Jiraiya, and then have Kakashi go with a platoon of Konoha shinobi to bring him back. Tsunade ordered, with Jiraiya smirking at her. Already did. He's in Moss country. Both Jinchuriki are being heavily pursued by several shinobi at the moment. Apparently, the bounty on them is too great to pass up for Iwa and Kumo because they'll want those two for themselves, Jiraiya proudly explained. While those teams thin out, our team will swoop in and grab both Jinchuriki for our own use. Exclaimed Tsunade, knowing victory would be theirs soon if everything went as planned. I've got Kakashi ready to go with a large team of Anbu, and Tenzo is also going because his ability to prevent a Jinchuriki from using their power is critical until I can put some seals on them, Jiraiya explained, with Tsunade nodding in agreement. Go with them. Bring those two here right away. Ordered Tsunade, as Jiraiya grinned, gave a mock salute, and flew out the window. Moss country right now. This wasn't exactly what I had in mind when I joined you, Fu exclaimed as she dispatched an Iwa Junin and a Chunin with her high-velocity speed and a pair of kunai in each hand. And what exactly did you have in mind? A walk through a field of flowers? Naruto asked, cutting through one Kumo shinobi with his clawed hand and another with the sword of Jubi before using the latter to slice open another Kumo shinobi's throat, blood spraying everywhere. Perhaps. It beats being hunted by shinobi all the time, Fu replied as Naruto let out a cruel laugh and sliced through two Iwa shinobi attempting to team up against him. Can't argue with you there, Naruto said before slamming his knee into the face of one Kumo shinobi, grabbing one from Iwa by the throat, crushing it, and flinging the body to the ground. When it was all said and done, Naruto and Fu emerged victorious, covered in the blood of their enemies. They took what they could from the corpses, divided them into two piles, and burned them while obtaining their shinobi ID cards, knowing that he could see who was killed in these groups. Another plus was that several of the shinobi from both Iwa and Kumo had a substantial amount of money on them, which reduced their travel expenses. So, what exactly is the plan? I know we have to get the other Jinchuriki on our side, but that's easier said than done, and every shinobi is looking for us, Fu asked as they walked away from the slaughter, and Naruto's one eye narrowed as he thought. First, we need to get to Suna. I need to talk to my old friend Gaara, who I've heard is now the Cage. Once we handle our business in Suna, we'll act accordingly from there, and move to get the others on our side, Naruto explained, with Fu frowning at him. Even if we get the other Jinchuriki on our side, it won't be enough, and we practically need a country backing us up in this plan, Fu explained, laughing. Just one country, huh? I just so happen to know of two such countries that would be more than willing to help us. But first, I need to get to Gaara in Suna, and ask for his support in any way that can be of benefit to us. He's also a Jinchuriki, so we won't have to worry about him ratting us out to Konoha since they're no longer allies, Naruto replied, Fu's eyes popping out of her skull. Seriously? What did you do to get so many influential people on your side? Fu asked, as Naruto smiled at her for a moment. Ask them yourself when we meet each one, Naruto replied before laughing while pouting. Jerk. Fu thought as Chimay buzzed inside her. Perhaps, my little larva, but you can't deny the boy is someone to fear and respect for his skills. That sword he holds is older than even the Biju, and for him to wield it. This boy walks a path of greatness, Chimay said, with Fu looking surprised. Seriously? Fu reasoned because she didn't want Naruto to overhear their conversation. Yes. That sword is none other than the sword of Jubi. Forged from the very fang of Jubi, which all 9 Biju had once been at one point in life once long ago, and was lost to the ages. I don't know how this Uzumaki Naruto got a hold of the sword, but I do know this. Only someone of the sage's direct bloodline could wield that weapon like he is now, replied Chimay, with the Biju's words. And to think he's about my age. Fu thought as he looked at Naruto's back, unaware that the blonde was staring at him in awe. Not to mention that he is Kyuubi's vessel. To cross him is to cross death itself. Chimay and Fu agreed. Perhaps traveling with him won't be so bad after all, Fu thought with a smile and a stirring from within. Fu had yet to discover exactly what that was.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.